Okay, so I've got everything ready. I'm going to put the stone in. I'll show you what I've done as far as the seat goes. Um, I use a bud burr, smaller ones and larger ones, to make my seat. And if you think about any kind of a V prong, it's basically, if you think of it as two individual prongs and you were to split them, essentially you would make a bearing here and a bearing here. So it's the same difference. The other thing is that, and the most important thing is that you leave a small clearance area for the tip. But more than that, and a lot of bench jewelers, stone setters, I've seen don't do this, is that's to make sure there's a clearance all the way down here by using a small bud burr, round burr. Make sure that that's clear so that your the keel of the stone as it comes down can't bind anywhere. That's probably the biggest reason most people break them. I've seen them do this. They'll clean out a hole and a little bit underneath, but they don't come all the way down. Make sure you come all the way down. So essentially, you can see it's almost as if I was to have split the prong in essence. Okay. Then you can see. Let me get a little bit more sideways here. You can see how the notch is basically a just like on a round stone or any other kind of a stone. So, and it wouldn't matter whether this was the V-tip for a marquee, for a pear shape. You know, I essentially do all of this the same way. So, all right. So let's see how our stone is fitting. Go. Gotta make sure you have it turned the right way. Let's get close again. All right, so you can see that where I have the area for the tip on all of these, and I do have to and will squeeze these in a little bit now. Um, on a fancy stone, I would rather bring the prongs into the stone than pull them out. You'll end up with not enough metal or meat when you're done if you pull prongs open for them, especially on color because color has a different kind of cut on the bottom. So we'll bring these in a little bit. Now I'm not trying to set the stone now or tighten it. I'm just getting it so that the prongs themselves are closer, and so that the bearing or the ledge is being used properly. And this is where you can check too to make sure that your stone is going to go and be clear of that corner pinching or getting bound. Checking that corner in particular because it's these white gold prongs, of course, are very springy. All right, that should do it. Next step is to relieve the back of these. All right, so it's time to start moving the metal down and over the stone. And for that, I'm going to be using a steel hammer point. And I have the tip of that frosted. Again, one thing that people do is they make great big punches, and really you have a lot more force if you use a small punch. The smaller the punch, the more force you'll get out of the end of it. Now, if you're trying to move metal, you want a small punch. The frosted tip make like little teeth, and I do that by hitting it on a like about a 260 diamond wheel. They kind of grip the metal and help to move it. Smaller punch would be for moving the metal, and then, you know, if you really want to smooth things, then you use a bigger punch because it's not going to have as much impact at the surface, so it won't move the metal as much as it will smooth it. So the one tip here that I was just thinking about, it has just enough clearance and it's fine. I'm going to do that one first. I'm going to hold this with my fingers so it doesn't bounce all over. Now, I'm going to move the metal slowly in. Okay. I always do opposite corners. So you can see I was able to move that in quite a bit. You know, this is one of the, I'm going to say it's an advantage of the end set, is that you can move metal very slowly, as I'm doing here. Watch it happening, and be able to stop, of course, or something if you were getting in trouble. Now, one thing that I have found with the end set, there's two ways you can use it for hammering. One is to hold it right on the piece and of course hit it. The other is to hold it just away, and if you have a long, depending on how long you have your stroke set, you can let it punch from that distance. That really gives you, I guess, more hitting force, okay? So depending on what you're trying to do. So I'm just going to move the metal. Again, I'm going slow so that I can watch what's happening and make sure that everything is where it should be. I'm going to hit this on the end and move the prong forward a little bit, and then come up here and start to move the metal over and down. Now, one thing too that's helpful is to make sure that it's really secure in your vise or on whatever you're using to hold it, because a lot of bounce will prevent you from getting as nice of hits as we're getting now. And so this one is pretty well where it should be. Now, the one thing that I do, and when I was taught to do stones with corners, is that when I'm done, I don't want to be able to look down at an angle here and see the tip of the stone. That happens a lot today. And I don't know if it's because they're reluctant to hammer the metal down on the stone or over the stone. I'm not quite sure, because if you do things properly, you can hammer back here, even where the tip is, because it's not binding, and especially with that keel, relief that I was showing you earlier. That stuff all makes a big difference. So, I happen to be fortunate is that the first place where I apprenticed was very old school, and when they did the tips, you never saw the stone under the tip. Sometimes I see where they have the metal just barely folded a little bit over the edge, and all right, so now I'm really, of course the stone is tight and has been, but I'm ready to start to hammer this more and smooth it. And what I'm going to do is turn my pressure down now, so it's much lighter hitting. And go ahead and start to really work the metal down and over. You want to make sure you hammer it down there so that there isn't a hollow spot. Of course, part of that has to do with the bearing. If you make the bearing well, and you won't have a big hollow spot up underneath. Some people make the hollow spot so big that if you go to hammer it down in here, this would all just collapse down in there. So this is a 1.02 carat stone. You get a nice expensive stone like this, so you want to do a real nice job, nice professional looking. And again, if you've done everything properly, you really don't have to worry about, that you're going to break the stone or anything, because it's just, other than slipping off and smacking the stone with the hammer, which can happen and does happen, and then you really shouldn't have any issues. So you see, I'm also, because I'm kind of trying to hold the shape of the prongs as I hammer it. And I could go to a lighter striker head now if I wanted to, and smooth it even more, but I'm going to end up just using a rubber wheel on that to shape them. And then we'll come back in and cut the notches so that it makes a nice even job. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim these with rubber wheel and that, and then I'll come back again and we'll make the nice little cut and notch, make the thing look really nice.